Regional Library.
Sorry, sorry. All right, go ahead, Craig.
Well, no, thank you, Diane, and the Fort Vancouver Regional Library for inviting me. Every opportunity we have to educate voters and citizens about the elections administration process is an opportunity we value. And to those of you who are here participating, thank you very much for taking some time to learn more about the elections administration process. It's been our experience that the more information people have about the elections administration process, the more confidence they have in that process and more confident they are in the results that the elections process results in. So I like to begin with the statement that the elections process relies on voters carrying out their responsibilities and election administrators carrying out their responsibilities. Both parties have responsibilities. Voters need to tell us when they moved. They need to tell us if the ballot did not arrive. They need to tell us if ballots arrived at their home for someone who no longer lives there. And in any concerns that a voter has, they really need to contact the elections office as promptly as possible and inform us of that. It is almost always the way we learn of problems in the elections process is by voters contacting us and telling us about the situation. And of course, election administrators have the responsibility to register people to vote, to keep the registration database as accurate as possible, again, with the help of voters, to provide the ballot that every voter is eligible to vote to the voter on a timely basis, and then finally to accurately and securely process that ballot when it's returned to us. You might note that when I talk about these two groups, voters and election administrators, they're both groups consist of humans. And one thing we know about humans is they make mistakes. And so one of the great quotes former elections director Tim Lickness had, he had several of them, but one was, "There's no such thing as a perfect election. There's always some glitch that occurs." Now, fortunately, in Clark County, those glitches have been relatively minor and have not risen to any great concern. But I do point out that voters make mistakes, and so do election administrators. Having said that, every election administrator I know, so there's been, as I'm sure each of you are aware, there's been a significant amount of criticism and concerns expressed about the vote by mail election process. I want to begin by saying every election administrator I have met that I know completely understands that they are part of the foundation that protects democracy in our country, that protects democracy in our democratic republic. Election administrators take very seriously their responsibility as gatekeepers against forces which would undermine confidence in election results. So that's really where it starts. It starts with voters, and it starts with election administrators who take their responsibility seriously. Just a little anecdote. Some of you were here in 2004 when we, in the state of Washington, had the closest governor's race in the history of our country. That race was ultimately decided by 133 votes. It was contested in the Superior Court. The contestants spent over $6 million examining the election process. $6 million buys you a very, very large magnifying glass. And that magnifying glass did not find any incident of bad behavior by an election administrator. So again, there have been concerns expressed about vote by mail. I'm here to say that here in Washington and Clark County, we've been conducting mail ballot elections for a long, long time. We know how to conduct elections, mail ballot elections, in a manner that produces results that people have a high level of confidence in. In Clark County, we've been conducting all elections exclusively with mail ballots since 2005. In the prior year, in 2004, almost 80% of the ballots were, when we had polling places, I think we had 70 polling places throughout the county. Over 80% of the ballots were returned to us through the mail. Beginning in 1992 in the state of Washington, all voters could choose to have every ballot returned to them, delivered to them as a mail ballot, permanent absentee ballots. So we know how to conduct vote by mail elections in this state. And again, we conduct those in a manner where people have had very high level of confidence. One of the best test of an election system, of an elections administration process, is a recount. And in Clark County, over the last, I have to look at my notes here, since 2005, we've had 10 recounts. Each of those recounts has supported my statement that the vote by mail elections process produces election results that people should have confidence in. In addition, over the past few years in Clark County, for every election, the first day, on the day after election day, we manually count about 600 ballots for one race. So we have recounts as that's the big show. That's really the big test of an office. But then just as an audit for every election, we manually count for one race, one office, 600 ballots. And again, those manual counts, that audit process has been perfect every time. So the vote by mail system we have here, we account for every ballot we receive. We account for every ballot that is tabulated, obviously, but also for every ballot that's not counted for one reason or the other. The most common reason for ballots not to be counted is because of a late postmark, but signature issues are also a reason. So one of the primary security feature in a vote by mail system is the comparison of the voter's signature on the affidavit envelope with the voter's signature in the registration database. We have trained people who are examining every single signature. They have to find at least 3 points of comparison in order for that ballot to be put forward for processing. And in the event that those 3 points are not found, the ballot is then challenged, set aside, and the voter is contacted and given information as to how they can cure that issue. So that is the primary security feature, and that is why I'm just really here to speak about Clark County and a little bit about Washington, but across the country, as we see these states that are dramatically increasing the number of people who are going to vote by mail, it is a cause for concern. It will certainly delay the announcement of final results in many of these states. Another important feature of the elections process in the state of Washington is the presence of certified election observers. And in Clark County, in addition to certified election observers for the two major political parties, we also have certified election observers from the League of Women Voters. And while these certified observers are representing their organizations, as a practical matter, they really are representing the community at large. They have access to the entire elections process during the entire time from when ballots are mailed out to when we certify the election. So in addition to concerns about vote by mail, there's some of you might have heard something about concerns with the U.S. Postal Office. And I have had direct discussions with U.S. Postal Service managers locally, the local, stations, as well as regional people out of Portland, regional people in Seattle, and then also at the federal level in Washington, D.C. And what the people at the federal level are saying is that we have these, our standard delivery schedules for bulk mail, and ballots are mailed to you. Ballots are mailed out to you on a bulk mail basis, and that when they're returned to us as first class postage. And the post office is saying, you know, we have our delivery standards. We believe we will meet those. But at the same time, there's all this other drama going on. The local and the regional people have assured me that they will continue to treat ballots as first-class mail and highest priority for all the ballots. Now, that's not to say that the post office doesn't make mistakes, because they do. They are processing millions and millions of pieces of mail every single day. But I personally have a very high level of confidence in our local post office system for this general election. A very good friend of mine works in the distribution center, and he has stated to me that the post office elections process will work fine here in Oregon and Washington because they're so accustomed to it. But again, he's expressed his concerns about in other states and post office. So, so I want to make a couple of points here. One, we talking about delivering ballots. We, if you are going to use the post office, we strongly encourage you to make sure you put that into the mailbox, those blue post office boxes, before, and look on the box to see when the pickup time is. And I would really encourage you to do that at least the day before election. If you do take it into the post office and hand it to a clerk, I just recently learned you have to ask the clerk to physically stamp that postmark onto the ballot. But also, in addition to the post office, we have a dramatically increased number of permanent, what we call drive-by ballot boxes here in the county. We will have, very soon, we will have 21 ballot drop boxes, permanent ballot drop boxes throughout the county that are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, beginning the day that ballots are mailed out until 8:00 p.m. election day. So there are lots of options for voters to get their ballots to us. And of course, we now have prepaid postage on ballots. If you want to save your government some money, you can use the ballot drop box and not use the postage, but that's your choice. You're welcome to use the ballot or use the post office. One of the returning your ballot early, one of the really strong features here in the state of Washington is the development of a new statewide voter registration system, or updated statewide voter registration system and election management system. And one of the results of that new system is much better information for voters. So, you know, I'd encourage you to write this down, or even, you know, just try to remember it. But votewa.org has really good information for voters. It's a great resource. It's votewa.org. And I would strongly encourage you to go on to votewa.org very soon and check your status. Make sure we have your right address. Make sure you're registered. Make sure you're an active registered voter. And one of the, so returning your ballot early to us will, you can obtain some comfort by going on to votewa.org and seeing that your ballot's been received by us. You can also call us, you can email us, we'll tell you, but you can independently go to votewa.org and find out the status of your ballot. You know, another side benefit of returning your ballot early is it might reduce the number of phone calls, texts, and mailers you receive from political campaigns. So, election administrators want to help every eligible person to register to vote, to help them get the ballot they're entitled to vote, and then to properly process those ballots when they're returned. The earlier, if there are problems, concerns that a voter has about anything in that process, the earlier they contact the elections office, the more options we have this system. You know, for this general election this year, we're expecting turnout of about 90%. It'd be close to record for this county. Certainly in quote unquote modern times, we have not seen 90% turnout. As a result, one of the results of that, though, is we expect on election day to have a couple thousand people come to our elections office. I would strongly encourage you to contact the elections office before election day so we can help you with the situation so that you don't end up standing in line with a couple thousand of your fellow Clark County citizens. What else do I want to say? So, you know, I can ramble on some more if you want, but maybe this is a good time to have some questions, I think, Diane, right?
Yeah, we can do some questions. It looks like Nancy has a question. Go ahead, Nancy. Oh.
Because the Northwest has done such a good job with mail-in voting, do you ever have other states, other elections offices contact you about possibly moving to that system in their area?
Well, thank you. So actually just today, Secretary Kim Wyman was speaking to our downtown Vancouver Rotary Club, and she has, she said today she's had over 400 interviews in the past since March, you know, primarily on this subject of vote by mail. And as a member of the National Association of Secretary of States, she is one of only two people, only one of two Secretary of States who has any experience in administration of a vote by mail election. So she has been, she has spent a lot of time. She has spent a lot of time talking with other states about how to conduct vote by mail elections, and it's a challenge. You know, I've been asked by the media a couple times on you know my opinions about this, and the first thing my first response is they should really have a special session of the legislature and change their laws and begin with allowing people to get their ballot counted if they have a postmark of election day or earlier. Oregon, across the border, with their requirement that ballots have to be in by 8:00 p.m. election day, works okay for Oregon, but it works okay for Oregon because the voters are used to it, and most importantly, because the U.S. Post Office is used to it. But in other states, that's going to be, you're going to have a lot of ballots not counted because they're not returned in time. And there's, you know, again, I try to talk just about Clark County and Washington, but I just learned today that in, I forget where it was, some state, if you don't have your ballot inside the yellow secrecy envelope, it's returned to the elections office. If it's not in that secrecy envelope, your ballot's not counted. Which seems crazy, but it wasn't that long ago in this state. If you wrote your name on your ballot wasn't counted. And I'll pat myself on the back a little bit, but it was of some assistance in getting a law changed. So if you choose to put your name in your ballot, it's your choice. Why would we as election administrators care? If you choose not to put your ballot in a secrecy envelope, why would we as election administrators want to not count your ballot? So there's kind of rambling on here, but you got me going, Nancy.
Tracy was wondering if she heard that you could track your ballots in real time, and is that true? And if so, how do you do that?
You know, the post office does have this intelligent mail barcode system, and I have to say I'm not all that familiar with all the options available under that intelligent mail barcode system. We do use the IMDb on our envelopes, but we're not tracking them in real time. Oh, now I see Tracy says, once it has arrived at elections. Once it has arrived at elections, yes, we can track it, you bet. And that's where votewa.org has a resource. Votewa is really remarkable. It's not a few minutes after that signature verification has been confirmed and that ballot has been put through the sorting machine that it shows up in votewa.org and your record as having been accepted. It's a very, very powerful website. So yes, in the elections office, we track your ballots, absolutely, in real time.
Greg, can I add then sort of another question to that?
Absolutely.
Which is, okay, so I have never been to vote.wa.org. Could you describe to me when I open up that website, what does it look like? And how will I find, am I going to type my name in? Are they going to ask me for private stuff like my Social Security? What is the action that I will do to drill that down?
Your name and birth date gets you into the votewa.org. And then you'll see your record. And, one of the features of elections system is that whether or not people are registered to vote, or the list of registered voters is public information, and information as to whether or not someone did vote is public information. And some people are surprised to learn that, and they think, well, why should anyone know whether or not I voted? But it's a fundamental security feature of elections process. You do not want an elections process where the county auditor is the only one who knows who voted and who didn't vote. You want a system where we can say, yep, these 96,000, or this year it's 250,000 people voted, and these are the people who voted. Now, how you voted is absolutely confidential, But whether you're a registered voter and whether or not in your voting history is public information. And so votewa.org, again, getting access to that requires you to put your name in and your date of birth, and then it shows you the status of your ballot. It also shows you it can show you your sort of the voter's pamphlet for the district you are eligible to participate in, and you can actually, if you've not received your ballot, and there's you can get an online ballot there if you want as well. You can print it online. You can print your ballot from online through votewa.org. So is that helpful? Is that?
Oh, did you see Mary just put in a question? I can read it if you'd like. I participated in voter registration drive yesterday. People were confused about something they got in the mail about having to request a mail-in ballot, and they're confused. Turns out they were referring to the USPS postcard. I know Clark County Elections has a recorded message about this and Greg's statement at clarkvotes.org, but what can we do to get the word out that nothing has changed?
How to educate voters about what's going on. This is the best way. Talking to 9 people, and they tell 9 people, and they tell 9 more people. I think that that postcard from the USPS was I think good intentions. I mean, it's the first thing you see when you look at that card is vote early. Well, that's okay. But then it goes on to say, contact your elections office and request an absentee ballot. We received, before we put that message on our voicemail about, the fact that we are mailing every registered voter, we're mailing a ballot to you. You don't have to make a request. It's an automatic process here in the state of Washington. But before we had that on the voicemail or the answering machine, you know, the first thing you heard when you called the elections office, we were receiving hundreds of calls from people with that exact same question. Well, I need an absentee ballot. No, you don't. No, you don't. We're going to mail you a ballot. But yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer as to how to communicate that to everybody. Wish I did.
Some people were wondering when they should expect to receive their ballots and when they should start to maybe worry if they don't receive it and who they would contact.
Perfect question. Thank you. The ballots will be mailed out October 16th. And, you know, we tell people if you haven't received it by the following Wednesday, I think that's the 21st, to contact us. You know, the vast majority of people will get their ballot on Saturday, the 17th, or certainly by Monday. And Wednesday, you know, yeah, contact us Wednesday if you haven't got it. But really, if you haven't gotten it by the end of the week, then you should absolutely be contacting us, and we'll help you fix the problem.
And that would be the votewa.org.
Well, I would if you haven't received your ballot by, you know, for sure by Friday, you can go on votewa.org and you can confirm ballot was mailed to you. It'll show the date the ballot was mailed to you. But again, you know, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if you haven't received your ballot, call us, send us an email. We are ramping up. We are dramatically increasing the number of people in the elections office who are there to answer emails and phone calls. So yeah, it's kind of back to my first part of my comments this evening. The responsibility of voters is to contact us when there's a concern. We can't solve a problem if we don't know about it, and we want to solve the problem. I see. Can we get the phone and email to contact if we don't? Yes, you can. It's 564-397-2345. That's the elections office. Is 564-397-2345, and the email is elections@clark.wa.gov. elections@clark.wa.gov. Oh, look at that. Someone's put it in the box. Thank you.
Jan. Thanks, Jan. Also, we have some people that had some questions about first-time voting tips. Best practices to fill out the ballot. For example, do they have to fill out every item on the ballot for their votes to count?
Yeah, thank you. No, you know, we have most ballots have what's called an undervote, where someone didn't vote in a race or an issue. I won't say all ballots have an undervote, but many ballots have an undervote. And we count the offices or issues where people have marked their ballot, but there's absolutely no requirement that you mark all the races or all the issues. So absolutely. And was there another part of that question, Diane, that I missed?
No, I think, well, do you have any tips or best practices?
Yeah. Absolutely. Become informed. Cast an informed vote. And there are lots of resources to do that. We are very pleased or very fortunate that in this county we have had a long history of providing voters pamphlets to voters, to every residence in the county. That's a good place to start. I would not, and that has, you know, statements by the candidates, contact information for the candidates and the campaigns. But there's certainly lots of other resources out there to become informed.
I have a question too.
Best question. But then, and I'll just finish up. I mean, just mechanically, a blue or black ink pen on the ballot, and then filling in the square would be appreciated. But black ink or blue ink is really what's really helpful. These fluorescent gel pens that don't work very well, or or very light pencils don't work very well. The voting, the ballot scanning software and machines are remarkably sensitive. They will pick up that stuff that you wouldn't think they do, but it's really helpful if you use a black ink pen or a blue ink pen. Thanks.
Now, if you lose your voter pamphlet, is there a place you can go to get another one?
Well, the pamphlet is online at votewa.org. Let me say that again, votewa.org. But it's not terribly user-friendly. You kind of got to go office by office, you know, federal, state, local. It's not as user-friendly as that printed pamphlet. I bet the local library has voters pamphlets available for people. And then we also at the elections office, we have a supply that we can provide as well. So contact us, we'll get that to you. We normally have a PDF of the actual pamphlet on our Clark County elections website. I don't know if that's on there yet or not. Sometimes that PDF, the scanned image of the printed voters pamphlet is a little bit easier to look through as well.
Okay, and I had another question. How do people get removed from the list of registered voters? For example, if somebody has died or moved?
Well, thank you for that. It's a question we get with some frequency because I think maybe I'm going to go into another question you had there, Diane, of boy, I'm getting my son's ballot's been coming to my house for the last 5 years and he hasn't lived here in 5 years, and why is he still getting those ballots? So how people get removed from the voter registration list is there's a couple different ways. The most direct way is that the voter fills out a cancellation form and sends it to us. Or when they register to vote in another jurisdiction, on that registration form, they say, I was previously registered in, you know, Clark County. And then we hope that that other jurisdiction will contact the Clark County Elections Office and tell us that that voter has re-registered in another county or another state. The other way, if the voter doesn't contact us and cancel the registration, then we go through a more involved process. It's first that the voter becomes inactive if we mail something to that voter and it's returned to us as undeliverable. We mail some election material to the voter and it's returned as undeliverable. So in the scenario I just described, where you know my child is still getting their ballot here, and you know, why are you doing that? It's because no one's told us that the child has moved. You know, they're just getting the ballot in the mail and they're just looking at that and saying, oh, that's for, you know, Betty, Sue, and Jimmy, and throwing it away and not contacting us. If that were to happen to you, if you simply wrote in that ballot envelope, person doesn't reside here, voter doesn't live here, give it back to the post office, they'll deliver it to us, they'll charge us for it, but they'll deliver it to us, and then that voter becomes inactive. So once it becomes inactive, there's still a process here. Once you become inactive, the voter has to miss 2 federal elections before they're canceled. And while they're inactive, we are paying the vendor of the vote wash system. We're paying a fee every year on the number of inactive registered voters we have. So we'd like to cancel voters who are truly not here in Clark County or don't want to become active voters someday. So.
Okay, so playing off of that, also there was, how do you make sure that nobody is using those ballots to register to vote themselves like 4 times or something?
So as I mentioned, we the primary security feature in the vote by mail system is the signature verification process. And so let's say that I'm at home and I get 4 ballots mailed to me because, you know, my 3 kids have moved out and I'm still getting the ballots. and I vote Ann's ballot, and I sign Greg Kimsey's name on Ann Kimsey's ballot, and I send it in. So the first thing will happen is we'll see that it's Ann Kimsey's ballot. We'll see, does Ann Kimsey live in the same jurisdiction that Greg Kimsey lives in, and then we'll set it aside. And if no other ballot comes in from Greg Kimsey, we'll count that Ann Kimsey's ballot that Greg Kimsey signed. But we'll hold it aside to see if another ballot comes from Greg Kimsey. So the other kind of real security feature in any election system is it doesn't really matter how many ballots are issued to a voter, because we only count the first one the voter returns. It's only only one to a customer. And so once a ballot has been returned by a voter, the signature has been verified, the ballot's put forward for processing, the voter's been given credit for voting, then any additional ballots come in will be rejected.
So what would happen if, for example, the son, you used the son and you voted as the son or as Ann and forged their name in order to
yeah, and that happens, you know. We all want to be helpful, and so, you know, the one scenario that we see a little bit is that the child's away at college, the ballot comes to mom and dad's home, mom gets the child on the phone and say, hey, we got your ballot here. You know, maybe mom does this or not. Sometimes mom just says, well, I know how Jimmy would vote, so I marked it the way Jimmy wanted me to mark it. And then mom says, and I'll just sign Jimmy's name there. I know how Jimmy signs his name. And that is a Class C felony if it's done with the intent. And so when that happens, we turn that information over to the prosecuting attorney's office. When I first came into office, we actually had the sheriff's deputies going to people's homes and saying, you know, this is a Class C felony, forging someone's name. What we quickly learned is that unless you do it with criminal intent, it's not going to be prosecuted. And you know, sometimes this is purely as a mistake. You know, someone picked up the ballot and they, oh, this is you know, Jimmy's ballot, and I'll just sign it. And then, you know, then also what happens, you get elderly people, and their signatures deteriorate, and you know, then we're challenging those as well, contacting the voter. But sometimes what happens, there is an opportunity, if you're not able to sign your ballot, you can make a mark, and then if it's witnessed by 2 people, we'll count the ballot. That's absolutely fine. But sometimes people don't understand that, and they will forge that person's, you know, the person who can't sign their name, they'll forge their name. And the people who do the signature verification take that responsibility very, very seriously. And there are, you know, for this presidential election, there'll be several thousand ballots challenged and not put forward for processing because signatures don't match.
Does the election office get a list from the county about death certificates issued to remove people from the registered voters list?
Thank you. Yes. So we get information about deaths from a variety of sources. The staff in the elections office, they read the obituaries in the local papers. That's one place we get them. We get it from the Washington State Department of Health. We also get it from the Social Security. There's a Social Security death registry or something that we get information. VoteWA gets information about. But it still happens. I just had a person contact me a week or so ago where their spouse had passed away in another state, and then you know, this person was still getting a ballot, and the person contacted me and said, hey, you know, my wife's been dead for several years. Why is she getting a ballot? And but it's because this person passed away in another state, and you know the information. I think the information was not provided to the Washington State Department of Health. So back to my beginning statement of there are humans on both sides and mistakes happen, and we need voters to contact us and give us that information. We don't have you know, we don't monitor every single person to know if they're still alive or if they're still living where they told us they lived when they registered to vote.
Can you go over the the verification process a little bit about how voters, what happens if the signatures don't match, the process behind it?
Sure. So first, the people who are doing signature verification have received training from the Washington State Patrol, and you know, I received that training, and it's not an art, it is a science. It's a very it's remarkable what the Washington State Patrol, these signature experts can do. So these people have been trained in that. There is a kind of a hierarchy of reviews that occur when signatures have been challenged. But ultimately, if it's determined that the signature doesn't match, as I mentioned earlier, the ballot is challenged. It's set aside. It's not put forward for processing. And then the voter is sent a letter, excuse me, sent a letter telling them that their signature doesn't match the signature on the record, and asking them and giving them the opportunity to provide an updated signature. And then we are required, if we have the voter's phone number, we are required to telephone them, those voters whose ballots have been challenged and set aside. We're required to telephone them within 3 days before the certification and tell them again of the challenge of their signature. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Do other states have voter signature verification for absentee ballots?
So this is one of the subjects that, you know, I think is going to be a real problem for these states that are going from, you know, 1% of the ballots come in through the mail to 10 or 20 or 30% of ballots come through the mail. That signature verification process is going to, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be an issue. At the very least, it's going to take them a lot of time. You know, when I first came into office, we had these giant filing cabinets with voter registration forms, and people were pulling the actual physical form out and holding it up next to the ballot envelope and doing a comparison that way. Well, today, the people who are doing that have all lined up on a screen in front of them, and they're, you know, they are blasting through these things. That and the sorting equipment that sorts these mail ballots, those are two big challenges for these states that are trying to ramp up their vote by mail process.
Can you go over a little bit of the safety and how you have I remember when you talked at another library event, you talked about the secured computer that tallies the votes, and that's not online and can't be hacked. I think that was, you were talking about hacking that time. And there's
Good
some.
job, Diane. You got it right there. That's all you need to say.
Can you maybe explain it a little more eloquently than I can? There's some concern
Not
about.
really. You did a great job. So security of the, you know, when the ballot comes in once we receive the ballot from the post office, we have a variety of processes and policies that we follow to keep that ballot secure, so that at the when we certify the election, we can report to the public that we know the number of ballots that were ballot envelopes that were received, the affidavit envelopes with voter signatures, the number of envelopes that were received, the number of ballots that were tabulated, and the number of voters who were given credit for casting a ballot. And then in addition, we report on the number of ballots that were not counted for one reason or another in about, I'm going to guess, about 100 different categories of why they're not counted, including every election will get a ballot from election of 2 years ago. So for the August primary, we had ballots came to us from the February special election. So there's a lot of reasons why ballots don't get counted. So that's kind of the overall environment. But specifically, once what I might do is just real quickly go through the process, what happens to a ballot when we receive it. So we receive ballots from the post office. They are ran through a sorting machine, a very large Pitney Bowes sorting machine, where they are sorted into precinct groups, and at that same time also they're scanned, and the signature on the affidavit envelope is scanned from the affidavit envelope. Then once the signatures have been verified, the ballot envelopes are scanned one more time, and then again sorted into those precinct groups. After that, the ballots are given to the inspection boards, where the inspection boards are taking those ballots by precinct group and putting them into one of two piles. The first thing they do is to remove the secrecy envelope from the affidavit envelope. The secrecy envelope contains the ballot. So the affidavit envelope goes into one pile, and the secrecy envelope with the affidavit, with the ballot, goes into another pile. And that's the step right there where we separate the identity of the voter from the way they voted the ballot. So at that point, the affidavit envelopes are removed from the table. The voted ballots, are then removed from the secrecy envelopes, and now they're sorted into one of two piles. The pile where we believe the scanning machine and software will be able to read the voter's intent perfectly, and the pile where it requires human intervention to determine the voter's intent, which is referred to as adjudication or resolution of the ballots. The next step is that those ballots are then taken into what we refer to as a tabulation room. They are ran through a scanning machine, and that tabulation room is where the scanning software and the computer that actually takes the information from that scanned and tabulates it into election results. None of the equipment in that room is connected to the internet. It is all separated from the internet. There is no connection whatsoever. It's in a, and that room is sealed in a locked office in a locked building with logs tracking, and we now have those magnetic cards to track who goes in and out, in addition to seals on the doors with people signing to say they've gone in or out of the room. So that's the quick process of how we get there, and I think that addresses the security in the tabulation room as well.
Somebody was asking how often are ballots picked up from the voter drop-off boxes?
So we've been doing this long enough now that we have a pretty good idea of when we need to go pick up ballots. You know, we need to pick up ballots from the ballot drop boxes more frequently from the ballot drop box here in downtown Vancouver than we do in Yakult. But however, even in Yakult, we don't want ballots sitting out there in that ballot drop box for more than a couple days. So it varies between, you know, it also varies within the election period. But so for example, the week after ballots are mailed out, when we typically get maybe about 25 or 30% of all the ballots we're going to receive, we receive in that first week after elections are mailed, or after ballots are mailed. We will go to the ballot drop box in downtown Vancouver daily. We will go to the one at the Fisher's Landing Transit Mall and downtown Camas probably every other day. We will always, there will never be a point in time when we haven't gone to a ballot drop box less frequently than every 3 days. So, you know, also, I guess this gives me an opportunity to talk about the sort of the security of ballot drop boxes. These, with the exception of the one that's downtown right across from our office, these things are stout. These ballot drop boxes weigh 700 pounds apiece. We had, there's a ballot drop box in Richfield on the east side of the I-5, just north of the main exit to Richfield. We had a semi-truck run over a ballot drop box last November, and it sheared off this ballot drop box. When it got hit by this truck, it sheared off 4 bolts, 3/8-inch steel bolts, and it put a small little scratch in the actual box itself. These things are stout. And then when we do pick up the ballots from the ballot drop boxes, it's done by 2 people. And again, with a chain of custody process in place to ensure that the ballots are kept secure.
Somebody is asking where the 21st ballot drop off will be placed.
Oh, thank you for that question. I'm quite pleased to be able to say that the 21st is going to be at the Brush Prairie post office. I'm going out there tomorrow and meet with the postmaster to find the exact location out there.
And at a
really
minimum,
ramped these things up in the last few months. Got to give a big shout out to all the places that have really assisted us with that, especially Clark Public Utilities, the Camas School District, Hawkinson School District, the Battleground School District. All these places have been really helpful in getting these ballot drop boxes out. Yeah, absolutely.
How much time would a state need to set up the entire process for mail-in voting? At a minimum.
Yeah, you know, don't know. I can't answer that.
I suppose it would depend on how much money they want to invest, and yeah.
You know, it's not just money though. It's not just money. You got to have you've got to have time to set up the processes and to train people. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we've got just a few
I want to say I want to answer that question by saying, well, we've been doing this since 1992, so you know, 28 years.
Okay, so we've just got a few more minutes left. Does anybody have any additional questions or anything they'd like to comment on? Or if there's anything left that you would like to say, Greg, now.
You know, votewa.org. If you have concerns, problems about the elections process, contact us. We absolutely, and that's why I so much appreciate the library districts inviting me out here this evening. It's been our experience that the more information we get to people, the more confidence we have in the results, and that is our #1 goal. I consider my most important responsibility is to work to improve people's confidence in election results. So thank you to the library for giving me this opportunity, and thank you to each of the participants for being here and becoming more informed about the elections process.
We do have one last question that was snuck in. Wondering if you have any additional difficulties. Do you expect any additional difficulties because of the expected high turnout rate for votes?
You know, it's just a matter of scaling it up. I mean, yeah, it's been a challenge to identify, recruit more temporary election workers. The big challenge, you know, with the COVID-19. So, you know, I described the inspection boards and the tabulation room. Well, those are people in there doing that work. These are humans, more humans involved in the process. And we've worked really hard to try to create an environment where they are as safe as possible so that they're willing to come in and help us out. And so with a 90% turnout, we are not going to achieve our goal, which is that as of election night, we've reported the results of all the ballots we have in our office as of election morning. And on Friday after the election, we've reported all the results in our office of the ballots we have in our office as of Friday. We are not going to achieve that this year. We have and the biggest reason for that is because the inspection boards, we are to achieve the social distancing, the physical distancing between the inspection board members. We have shifts. We have 2 different shifts of these people, and so we have fewer people in every day, and it's going to be a slower process. But there's no doubt in my mind we'll be able to get through these. What is that? That's 93 times 90, 270,000 ballots. We'll get through those in time for certification. But I do think there's no doubt I'd be very surprised if we know with a high level of confidence who the president is election week.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Greg, for coming and spending the time with us today. I appreciate everybody coming. And if you have any additional questions, please let us know at the library. We'd be happy to help you. I hope everybody has a good evening. Thank you for spending your time with the library.
Yeah. Thank you, Diane.
I'm going to stop.
Nice job, Greg.